Well, hello, everyone. Well, it's been a little bit of an eventful day, and some might even say an eventful weekend. Welcome to Live at 5. Live at 5 is a stream that I do aptly at 5 p.m. on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And sometimes I just come on and I talk about the news. Sometimes I have a guest and we have a fun conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about something serious because completely accidentally, on Friday, during my normal Friday happy hour, we unearthed some shenanigans going on in Burlington, Vermont, and have spent the last several couple days pretty much working straight with a team of people that I like to call the Unwoke Army to cover what is going on in the Burlington, Vermont school system. The most woke school district in America is grooming children live on the internet. This is what the so called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida and the Woke Stop Woke Act were meant to prevent. Now, I'm going to go ahead and link this in the chat for the YouTube, and then welcoming, of course, my viewers on Odyssey as well. The link is in the chat there on Rockfin, on Rumble, and if you're watching on Gitter right now, welcome. Glad you made it. You can find the link to the article in my Gitter feed. So that's all fine, all fine, well, and good. So, really, guys, on this stream today, we have one order of business. We're going to talk about what's going on in Burlington, Vermont. And trust me when I tell you that, listen, there's just no other way to say this. I've been watching these woke trainings for pretty much about 2 years now. I've been watching woke trainings and woke videos, and sometimes I do it just on my own time, and sometimes I do it publicly on the internet like we do on happy hours on Friday. And I have never seen anything like what we uncovered on Friday. Now, for those of you who don't know, Friday happy hour is usually supposed to be a fun stream. It is on my second channel, youtube.com/activilyunwoke. You can find the link in the description. If you're watching on Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, or Gitter, it's going to be in the same place. But on Fridays at 5 o'clock, I generally go live and we watch a woke video on the internet. We watch it from start to finish. We learn what the enemy is saying. This is how I'm able to decipher the woke from a real world perspective. I just watched a lot of their content. I've watched a lot of it. And on Friday, what happened is we were watching a webinar given by the school district in Burlington, Vermont. And it slowly started to dawn on not just me, but I think everyone watching that what we had found was completely unacceptable in any way, to the point where I remember towards the end of the stream, and you can actually go and watch the stream. It's on, again, it's on my second YouTube channel. You can watch this unfold in real time. By the end of the stream, I was just dead silent because I was livid at what we had just witnessed. And so then what happened is I have a group of people in my locals community. We'll talk about locals in a sec, but they're called the Unwoke Army. And these are people, average, normal people, just like anyone watching this. Many of them are in the chat right now. I'm not going to identify them because many of them want to remain anonymous because they're afraid of getting canceled. But what we did is we met up in my Unwoke Army Discord. I have a local supporter Discord, and then I have a completely separate Discord for the Unwoke Army. And the Unwoke Army is specifically for people who are taking initiative to fight back against woke insanity. People do their own projects. It is completely decentralized. I'm not like the boss or anything. It is a decentralized movement, but we help each other, we support each other. And what happened after the stream on Friday is it ended up being close to 24 people in the Unwoke Army Discord worked all weekend long to decipher what is going on in Burlington, Vermont. And that is what we're going to learn about here today. Now, there are some really so first off, I just want to give just a giant shout out to everyone who worked on this, because though this is published under my name, that is only because the people in the Unwoke Army don't want to be publicly identified. But I don't want it to seem as though I'm taking all credit for this, because I would not have been able to write this article if it was not for the efforts of every single person that was involved in this. And we're still looking into it. It's still going right now, because the Berlin one, some might view this as a positive, some might view it as a negative. It worked out pretty well for us. One of the things about the school district in Burlington, Vermont, is that they do everything publicly, everything transparently. We had 10 years of equity reports to look through. We have their budgets. We have their school board goals. We have every single equity program that this district is running. We have hours and hours and hours and hours of video to watch. We had to go through all of it and to try to figure out what exactly was happening. And this article that we're going to go through today is not going to be the last article on this, because this article just scratches the surface. It is the skim off the top of the amount of information and documents and videos that we are continuing to go through, and there will absolutely be follow-up. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'll give you the conclusion of the article now. I truly believe that Burlington, Vermont is going to become the first American city built entirely on equity. It is what the community wants. It is what the community is supporting. I'm going to talk about this, but we're going to focus on the schools today, but the next article that's going to be coming out is about the city's racial justice and equity plan, which is even more insane than the schools. This is an entire community built on equity, and I firmly believe that this is the next evergreen state college. There is nothing that you can do to convince me otherwise. This is the next evergreen state college. If you watch, and I'm hoping to cajole Benjamin Boyce to come on my channel and talk to me about this. But if you look at the videos that we have of some of these students, and I'll talk about it as we're going through it, they sound exactly like the students at Evergreen State College. The only difference is that these students are 12 years old. They're in middle school. They're not in college. They're in middle school. And they've been indoctrinated by their public school system into this woke ideology. And it is what their parents want. It is what the community wants. And this is something I think we're going to be keeping an eye on for, probably the next several years, to be honest, because I want to see exactly where this goes. So our task today is we are going to go through some of the video. We're going to watch all the videos in this article. We're going to go through this article start to finish. I'm going to explain to you exactly what we found. I'm going to show you all the videos. I'm going to explain things in context. I might even explain things that aren't in the article, because we can only get so much into the article. We have to say when at some point, right? And we're going to talk about what it means, and we're going to talk about next steps, and I would like to answer your questions. But my big asks, guys, are please share this article. People need to see what is going on. And so please share this article with your friends and family. It is on carlin.substack.com. It is the very first thing that you are going to see. I have a thread on Twitter that is pinned to the top of my feed. I am Dr. Carlin B on Twitter. It should be in the description below, or you can just search for me on Twitter. Please share that thread, retweet that thread. It is currently going viral on Twitter. It has well over 150,000 views last time I checked. The videos are getting a lot of views. It's getting a lot of retweets. Please share this with people so they can see. All right. So we are going to dig into this article. But before we do that, I just want to let everyone know that I wrote a book. And this book is actually really pertinent for the discussion that we're having today. I wrote a book about how to fight back against woke insanity in your life. One of the things I talk about extensively in the book is exposing what they're doing, showing people exactly what they're doing, because you don't actually believe it until you see it for yourself, and we're going to see it today. But showing people what they're doing documenting what they're doing, keeping an eye on every single detail of what they're doing. Actively Unwoke is going to teach you how to do all of that and much, much, much more. You can currently pre-order your copy of the book on Amazon. There's a hardcover version, there's a Kindle version, there's an audiobook version. It was originally supposed to come out at the end of April. Sadly, due to supply chain issues and the printer having staffing shortages, it has now been pushed back to May 10th. You know, we're going to say everything happens for a reason. That's just going to give us a couple extra weeks to really promote the pre-sale. And guys, every single one of you that orders Actively Unwoke, you send an indication to the bookstores and the publishers that this is something you guys want. So this is the only book on the market that will give you practical, actionable advice for fighting back against woke insanity. I have a ton of case studies about real people who have done it in their lives. I have strategies you can implement starting today. So make sure you pre-order the book and it will be delivered to your door as soon as the printer is actually able to print it. But the very best thing you can do if you would like to support my work and the work of the Unwoke Army, the people responsible for doing all this great research that we're going to go through today, you can become a member of my locals community. My locals, like, listen, you guys think I'm blowing smoke when I say my locals is the best? My locals worked all effing weekend on the research for this article. We have a community Zoom call in 2 hours. At 7 p.m. tonight. We do 2 community Zoom calls every single week. These community Zoom calls are not recorded. They are private. And this is where we start to brainstorm some of the things that we do together. You can get access to those community Zoom calls and much, 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 much more by heading over to kb.locals.com/support and joining for $5 a month. You can also join for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. When you become a member of my locals, you get access to the community Discord. You will be eligible to get access to the Unwoke Army Discord. You have to go through a screening process to get into the Unwoke Army. I'm not going to lie. I don't let everyone into the Unwoke Army. It's not that I don't trust you, but if I don't know you, I'm probably not going to let you in because it's too much. I don't want drama. I don't want bickering. I don't want internet nonsense. I'm sure no one watching this now would ever engage in drama and bickering and internet nonsense, but there is a screening process where I have to get to know you, or someone I trust has got to vouch for you in order to get into the Unwoke Army, at least at this present moment. I know everyone wants to help out, and I will be glad that you do, but the very first step for that is honestly becoming a member of my locals community, because that's where I'm going to get a chance to know you and decide you're not a psycho. And once I decide you're not a psycho, that's when you're going to be eligible to join the Unwoke Army and come help us out. I'm sorry, guys. I've dealt with too many internet psychos to deal with any bullshit. It's just the way it goes. So if you want to help me out, support the work I'm doing, support the Unwoke Army, potentially become a part of the Unwoke Army, you can head over to kb.locals.com/support and get in on at least the community Zoom calls. Those are really the best. All right. Let's dig into it. Now I just have to hook up my sound because there is sound that we need to watch in this here article. All right. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. That should be pretty good, right? That should be good. Maybe a smidge. Oh, I just made the wrong screen bigger. Hang on. Smidge bigger. Really, it's for you guys, not so much for me. Oh, that's nice and big. All right. So this article is called "The Most Woke School District in America is Grooming Children Live on the Internet. This is what the so-called Don't Say Gay Bill and Stop Woke Act in Florida were designed to prevent." And we're going to start off. This is actually a real photo from this school district. So this school district made a big to-do about they were raising the Black Lives Matter flag on the, we didn't write about this in the article, but there was a big old to-do about they were raising the Black Lives Matter flag in the school flagpole. They had a whole ceremony with students raising the Black Lives Matter flag in 2020. Now, of course, probably no one has told them that Black Lives Matter is currently under investigation in several states for defrauding the people who donated to them. That's neither here nor there. They engage the students in all of this. It's all like Google Burlington School District Black Lives Matter. It's going to come right up. Maybe we'll cover it in a future thing. But this is actually a picture from the Burlington School District. This isn't just 2 random kids. This is when they had their ceremony of raising the Black Lives Matter flag on the school flagpole. I've already acknowledged the work of the Unwoke Army, but I think it just can't go without saying enough. This was an impossible feat. there was so much to go through. I am still overwhelmed with how much there was to go through. And members of the Unwoke Army, we all came together and then we just all started doing what we did best. I was clipping videos and looking through a lot of videos. People were looking through massive amounts of PDFs and budgets. And there were people who served on school boards that knew how to read school board meeting minutes. And there were people who were looking into the equity programs. And there were people who were Googling. And it was just like everyone was contributing in some way. So huge shout out to the Unwoke Army, every single person that worked on this. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of your efforts. And we just got to keep going on it. All right. On Friday, on February 8th, 2022, the Burlington, Vermont School District hosted a webinar called Let's Talk About Gender, Identity, and Expression. Live on the internet, in front of the whole community, a 7th grade student discussed their experience coming out in the 5th grade with the help of their school guidance counselor. Now, anytime in the article you see something in quotes here, that's just what's in the video. So what I'm going to do for the purpose of this stream is I'm just going to play the video so that we can watch it together.
And there was a follow-up question for our student panelists to add on to that. Do you feel like young kids feel seen and supported as much in elementary school as they do in middle and high school?
To answer that question, so I'm in middle school and I have a younger sibling in 4th grade, and not 100% sure what their pronouns are, but right now, so my sibling, I went to the same elementary school and I felt pretty supported, and I actually, I came out in 5th grade with the help of my guidance counselor. And they were really supportive. We had a whole unit with the guidance counselor just teaching us about stuff.
I came out in 5th grade with the help of my guidance counselor. And I don't know this for sure, so I didn't put it in the article, but my suspicion is not actually that the student talking came out as gay. I am virtually positive, though I could be wrong, I am virtually positive the student came out as trans in the 5th grade with the help of the school guidance counselor. And you'll notice one of the other things they said is, I don't know my sibling's pronouns yet. Their sibling apparently has not decided. In the same webinar, teacher Billy Ray Polai introduces the gender unicorn as a tool they've used to teach about gender identity and expression in the school district. The Gender Unicorn is one of many resources listed on the school's diversity and equity resources page. So let's just, I want to just, I'm going to have to switch back and forth between sound on, sound off. That's okay, because there are a lot of web pages in this that I just want you guys to be able to see. This is the school's equity resources page. So let's just look into this. They've got learning for justice. They've got culturally responsive teaching. Culturally responsive teaching is something we did not talk about in this article. It's all over this school district. Culturally responsive teaching, which is basically code for critical race theory, examining whiteness. They've got resources for families. Let's see. The Gender Unicorn. Oh, Nice White Parents podcast. This is on the school district website. Sesame Street. What is racism? Sesame Street. Black Lives Matter. They've got all sorts of stuff there. All sorts of stuff. But the Gender Unicorn is, of course, a special thing that they've been using not only to teach other people about gender, but apparently to teach students about gender. Anyway, the Gender Unicorn is one of many resources listed on the school district's diversity and equity resources page, along with things like the Teaching Well White podcast, Nice White Parents podcast, and all sorts of tools for examining white supremacy, privilege, and unconscious bias. Now, the video that we're about to watch features the assistant principal of Edmonds Middle School, which is one of the schools in the district, and the assistant principal is a trans non-binary person that uses they them pronouns. Again, nothing wrong with that. I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with being trans or non-binary or using they them pronouns. I don't really care what people do. But let's watch the video.
Now, some of you may have seen this handy dandy flyer before. I love this. This is a fabulous educational tool. The Gender Unicorn! Ta-da! Okay, I don't know if you all have seen this before, but yes, all of the spirit fingers for the Gender Unicorn. This is a fabulous, fabulous tool that we use in educational settings to talk about gender identity and gender expression. So it's just, it's fabulous. So again, the blue is representing the gender identity. The green, we're talking about gender expression, sex assigned at birth, physically attracted to, emotionally attracted to. There's a whole series on the Gender Unicorn and lessons that can be used to go over it. I learned about it in a training I went to this fall, and 2 years ago I was in it as well. This is a fabulous tool, especially for visual learners, right? For visual learners. I am a huge visual person. I don't do well with stand and lecture. Give me pictures, please. So, Nikki, have you used this in class before or in a lesson setting?
So I have used it both in a lesson as a teacher, but also with our staff at EMS. Earlier this year, we did a training where the Gender Unicorn was a major piece that we talked about to support staff members to continue to learn and understand our students' identities when it comes to gender.
So that's the assistant principal confirming that they have indeed used the Gender Unicorn to teach students. Okay. In the same section of the webinar, the administrators had each of the students on the call introduce themselves along with their pronouns to the people watching. I included this clip because I really wanted people to get a sense of who exactly was on these calls and how many students were on these calls and how young these students were. So this is literally just student introductions. And again, I feel a little bit, to be honest, a little weird putting student names in this article, but the fact of the matter is this video was taken off of YouTube and posted by the school district on YouTube and is currently on their school district homepage. So it is not me who has made these minor students' names public along with their pronouns and their schools and all of that. That's not me. That is the administrators and the equity office at their school.
Yes.
And students, this is part of our virtual equity workshops to involve students at every step of the way. And I always say, we want you to be most comfortable. We'd love to see your face, but you're welcome to keep your cameras off. And like AP Ellis said, you can choose to share your pronouns or anything about you that you'd like. But I would just like to do a little shout out so that we know they're here. So Aubrey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Aubrey. I'm in 7th grade. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I go to Edmonds Middle School.
Thank you for being here, Aubrey. How about Batula?
Hi, my name's Batula. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I go to BHS.
That's the high school.
Thanks, Batula. How about Delia?
Hi, I'm Delia. I use she, her pronouns, and I go to Hunt Middle School.
Thanks, Delia. And how about Harper and Sophie?
Hi, I'm Harper. I use she, her pronouns. I'm in 7th grade and I go to Hunt.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I currently use she, her pronouns, and I'm in 7th grade at Hunt.
I just want to pause right there. This is something I'm not positive about, but I've sussed out enough from listening to enough of this content. I'm pretty sure the student that we just heard talk also considers themselves to be trans. I'm pretty sure. Not positive. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Thanks for being here. Naima.
My name is Naima and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm from Edmonds, 7th grade.
Thanks. There's a couple other students here, but I'm not sure if you want to unmute and introduce yourself. I think Zelda's here too. Zelda, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Zelda. I go by he, they pronouns, and I go to Hunt Middle School.
So that's just some of the students that are on these calls. There are different students on every single one of the webinars that we're going to look at, but there is one common theme in that many of the students who you see showing up over and over and over again on these webinars, they're involved in Social Justice Club or Racial Justice Summer Camp, which we're going to talk about a little later in the article. In the next clip, the administrators make sure the students were on display, centering their voices above all others. And this is a really key point. They put these webinars out on their website and on their YouTube channel to show off all the great work they're doing with their students. This is something that people really need to understand. They're proud of what they're doing. They view this as amazing. They think this is great. They probably have no idea why anyone would be upset about this. They probably have no idea why we were pissed off enough to write this article. They think all of this is great. They are purposefully putting middle school students on the internet talking about this stuff. Okay? So what we're going to hear now is one of the school counselors is going to ask the students a question to elevate the student voice in the conversation. And you know how at Evergreen that for those of you who have watched Benjamin Boyce's documentary on Evergreen State College or any of the other documentaries that have been created, do you know how the professors kept saying over and over and over again, the students should guide us, the students should guide us, the students should guide us? Well, I asked James Lindsay about this last night, and he said that this is a very specific component of Marxism. I don't have his exact reference off the top of my head, but this idea that the youth should guide the adults is a very specific component that comes out of Marxist ideology. But that's what you're going to hear in this. Now, this is a lot of explanation, and I just want to go right down to the clip because this is a little bit of a longer clip, but that's okay.
All right, we have a question from one of our lovely school counselors in the chat. Hi, Miss Brady. Miss Brady asks, whenever someone misgenders someone near me, I never correct them until I ask that person if it is okay. Is that how I should handle it, or should I immediately correct them? And I'm going to open the door for our student panelists to weigh in here with perspectives about this question.
Notice the silence. The students don't want to answer the question. They're waiting. Still waiting.
And I have really good wait time because I work in education.
So I just want to point out right here, what they just did is a school counselor asked a question of the students on the call that the students obviously did not want to answer because none of the students spoke up. And now what the teachers are doing is they're making it clear to the students that they are going to wait in silence until a student answers that question. I just want you to think about how this must feel to the you want to talk about power dynamics. Teachers have the power in this scenario. If teachers are saying, we're just going to sit here silently until you say what we want you to say, 12-year-old students, they're pressuring them into participating in this exercise. Now, okay, so we've just gone through a long moment of silence where this person asked a question. They're waiting for the students to answer. This person has just pointed out, guys, I've got really good wait time because I'm an educator, so we can sit here all night until you answer this question, and then listen to what happens.
Listen, just because you work in education doesn't mean you have a good wait time. I'm slowly dying over here. All right, does anyone? Come on, kiddos. We got this. Here we go.
In the chat.
So now the other teacher has spoken up, be like, come on, guys. Come on. Let's get an answer to the question. Let's do it, guys. This is completely pressuring the students to engage in this. And what you're going to see is that this student is going to give a non-answer. The student that speaks up is going to give an answer that speaks to both sides of things, because what this student is trying to do is to please the teachers who have just pressured them into participating in a webinar talking about their gender. So they're going to give an answer that's non-committal and can appeal to both sides. Listen to what this student does.
The question is in the chat, yes, and if you would like to answer it either in the chat or out loud, either of those ways are greatly appreciated.
I feel like I want that student to do it themselves, because it's better to hear it from someone that you affected instead of a teacher that's telling you something. It's better to listen to the person that you hurt than an actual person that was outside of the conversation. But I think it's good to immediately handle the situation yourself, but it's also good to let someone else do their own thing.
So the student who finally spoke up said, you know what, I think the student should handle it themselves, but maybe it's okay for them not to handle it too. Either is fine. I think it's good for the student to own their own thing. I think it's good for the teacher to handle it immediately. They gave an answer that could go either way. Now listen to what the other students do and how they respond, because remember, they don't want to answer this question. So how do they respond?
Any other students want to weigh in with their perspectives?
I agree with Naima.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Me too.
All the students are just like, I agree, I agree, I agree. Don't make me talk. Don't make me answer this. I agree, I agree. Now, because that original student gave a non-committal answer, that answer is not going to be deemed acceptable by the people asking the questions, right? Because they want a more definitive answer, or maybe that answer wasn't exactly what they were hoping the students would say. So now watch as the assistant principal slides in there and was like, I'm going to answer this question so I can teach you what to say next time. Now, she doesn't, well, they don't, sorry, I misgendered. They don't say that. But this is how I saw this. The assistant principal is not happy with the answer that they've given, and they want to guide them to a different answer. So they're going to tell them what to say for next time when they're asked this. Listen.
I would say for me personally, when someone misgenders me, I don't always feel comfortable correcting them in the moment. But I personally do feel supported when my cisgendered peers and colleagues are able to help make that correction.
Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Guys, if you are finding this illuminating, please mount that like button for me. Now, when you're not liking the content that we're looking at right now, you're liking the fact that an entire team of us worked every day for the last 2 days, all day, every day, to expose this content. That's why you're mounting the like button, and you're also letting YouTube know that this is content they should promote so that more people can see what is being done. So please mount that like button. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button too if you would be so inclined. Moving on, this isn't the only webinar in which the Burlington School District has put its middle school students on the spot. In another webinar in their Equity Community Workshop series, the district hosted Let's Talk About Whiteness on March 8th, 2022. This time, middle school students are pressured by their teachers to talk about times when they were complicit in white supremacy by remaining silent when they should have spoken up. Flanked by a slide declaring white silence is violence, the school district's equity instructional leader, Autumn Bangora, told a story about when she stayed silent about racism when she felt she should have spoken up. When she concludes, she asks the roughly 12-year-old students on the webinar to share a story about a time when they should have spoken up. So this is just describing what happens. Let's actually listen to the clip.
So the next slide is about white silence. And this is from Layla F. Said, who wrote Me and White Supremacy. White silence is exactly what it sounds like. It's when people with white privilege stay complicitly silent when it comes to issues of race and white supremacy. And I always like to share vulnerable stories. So I'm going to share a story. I was in my local supermarket and I was standing in line in the self-checkout. And I noticed one of the employees, the cashiers, go, "Did that boy just go off with the diapers?" And I looked up from my phone and there was a young Black teenager holding diapers in his hand, getting ready to go to the self-checkout. I was with a colleague who did talk to the cashier, and I did talk to the young boy, but to this day, I feel a little bit like I was too silent in that moment because it was clearly racism to me. It was a very loud call out, thinking that that boy was stealing the diapers. His mother was probably in the car, sent him in for an errand. He was doing the right thing. I heard him kind of mutter under his breath the harm that it caused. So I'm just sharing this vulnerable story of how I have stayed silent when it comes to race and racism. And I'm going to put that towards the student. Have you stayed silent when it comes to race or racism, or do you generally speak up?
So I just want to explain what she just did. She just gave the students an example. She's like, I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to show you exactly the type of way that I want you to answer. So she has modeled the behavior for the students that she wants the students to follow. And then she's saying, now it's your turn, students. I told you a vulnerable story about when I was silent and when I should have spoken up about racism. Now you tell me a story about when you did the same.
You're welcome to share a story. And we've got Aubrey here, Delia, Anya, Lucy, Sophie, Harper. I'd love to hear from others. And if I've missed some of you, there's 27 on the call, so chime right in.
There's 27 students on this call. That's what she just said. If I miss some of your names, there's 27 of you here. And they're waiting?
I feel like there are times that I didn't want to stay silent, like I want to say something, but I didn't really know what to say. I have social anxiety, so I'm sure there are a lot of times not said anything, but I'm not sure if that's exactly that.
Definitely, Sophie. That's exactly that. It's uncomfortable. I'll say it right. It's also straight out that fear of open conflict from our last slide. It is very, very uncomfortable to stand up and say something and to perhaps create conflict in a situation where you could just be like, oh, da, da, da.
So what that person is just referring to when she says, yes, Sophie, it was probably just your social anxiety that prevented you from speaking up. And it's really uncomfortable. And we have a fear of conflict. What she's talking about is this slide, which is a previous slide that they went through. And what she's saying is that, it's natural for white people to not want to speak up because one of the attributes of a white supremacy culture is fear of open conflict. So you can see right here on this slide, it's got 15 characteristics of white supremacy culture. Fear of open conflict is one of those characteristics. So this teacher has just said to this 12-year-old student, it's natural for you not to want to call out racism because you're white, and because you're white, you have a fear of open conflict. Or if the student is not white, because I don't know the student's skin color, but if the student is not white, what she would say is you're embracing whiteness. And that means that you're afraid of open conflict. Let's keep going.
Others, have you stayed silent when it comes to race, or do you speak up?
I think these are skills too that as white people we don't often have, or we don't often practice them, like the skill of stepping in and saying something. And so I think all of us have those moments where we see it and we know it's racism and we just don't know what to do.
So that woman right there, her name is Virginia Litchfield.
And I'm gonna.
Her name is Virginia Litchfield, and Virginia. Let me just show you guys this. This is deranged. Okay, so the Burlington School District has partnered with a social justice organization in the community. And Virginia is not an employee, so far as I understand, of the Burlington School District. Virginia is a liaison from the Burlington Community Justice Center who is based in the school. So she works in the schools, but she actually works for this social justice community center. If we read her bio here, I joined the Burlington Community Justice Center as an AmeriCorps in beginning of 2018 and have spent the last few years immersed in the restorative justice in both the community and the classroom. We didn't really touch on restorative justice in this article, but this school is doing a boat ton of stuff with restorative justice and restorative practices. We just didn't get into it in this article. It's going to be a future one, but we'll talk about what that means. I have been able to serve in each of our programs in my different service years, which has given me a front row seat to how restorative justice is used in our community and schools to create safety and belonging, to give voice to affected parties, and to provide healing when harm has occurred. They never define what harm means. I am now working as a partner with the Burlington School District and Up for Learning as we seek to reduce racial disparities in suspensions and expulsions. So this person is literally working for a social justice organization, but is based within the school. How messed up is that? All right, let's go back and finish the rest of this clip because Virginia has some more stuff to say.
Share the second question. What types of situations elicit the most white silence? I'll share for me personally, it's when it's a friend or someone you know that might say something and you're like, oh, do I have the courage to bring it up with them? Especially if it's like this kind of joking or something that you're like, is that bad? Should I bring that up? I think those are situations that sometimes elicit silence. Anyone else?
I feel like it's times when a lot of times there are times where like people could say something and like there wouldn't really be any repercussions, but if they're like something could like happen to them, then they're like way more likely to not say anything, even if it's something minor.
I just want to elevate the chat too. Liz said in the chat, when there's a power imbalance, like if you're talking to a teacher or you're talking to your boss, and power is important, and whiteness and power generally go together. That is baked into the system.
Whiteness and power generally go together, and that's baked into the system. Welcome to the most woke school district in America. And I'm not exaggerating on that. I actually genuinely do believe we have found the most woke school district in America, which is why it's important for us to look at it. On June 1st, 2020, Burlington School District welcomed a new superintendent, Tom Flanagan. Flanagan started his time in the role by creating a 100-day entry plan filled with every woke buzzword you could possibly imagine. Restorative practices, social emotional learning, culturally responsive teaching, etc. At the center of his plan was equity. And when I say it was at the center of his plan, I literally do mean it was at the center of his plan. So let me show you the homepage for his 100-day plan. And you are going to see his 100-day entry plan and report, because he did, do a report, and you'll see right at the top, equity. It is the core responsibility to make sure all of our students are served and are valued and challenged, and that we intentionally build on the strengths and assets. Culturally relevant teaching practices encourage us to embed content that allows students to see themselves in what they study, to follow their interest, to collaborate, critique, and think critically. I believe that by addressing inequities, we will improve outcomes for all of our students, staff, and the greater community. So when I say he put equity at the center of his tenure as superintendent of this school district, I literally mean it. I literally mean it. All right. Let's see. Let me go back to the article. Make sure I have the sound on because we got some more stuff to watch, but not just yet because we have some stuff to read over. Now, if you're new to the world of the woke, the concept of equity might sound nice, but it is fundamentally different than equality. And this is really important to understand in the context of this discussion, and you're going to see exactly how this plays out. Equality is the idea that everyone, regardless of their race, gender, or any other immutable characteristics, should have access to the same opportunities. This is what Martin Luther King Jr. referenced when he expressed his desire for his children to be judged by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. Everyone trains for the race, shows up to the starting line, does their best, and the best person on that day wins. Equity is a bit different. It's the concept of eliminating all disparities in outcomes so that everyone ends up at the same place. Imagine everyone running a race finishes at exactly the same moment, regardless of how hard they trained. That's equity. When followed to its logical conclusion, it fundamentally eliminates the opportunity for greatness. I don't know. Someone is disrupting the chat, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on. But I'll leave it to the moderators in the chat to decide whether or not people should be put in a time out because I can't pay attention to that right now. I do want to acknowledge this super chat. Are you familiar with the premise of the flying spaghetti monster? If so, is the woke ideology the flying spaghetti monster? The left won the flying spaghetti monster argument, and here we are. I am familiar with the concept of this flying spaghetti monster. No, the woke ideology is not the flying spaghetti monster. I think the flying spaghetti monster is a horrible analogy, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. But thank you for the money. I appreciate that. I do read all super chats on the screen, regardless of whether I agree with them or not, or think they're blatantly dumb. All right. Moving on. Now, I had to sneak a promo in there for my book, obviously, because the people that I talk about in this article will absolutely hate my upcoming book, Actively Unwoke. You can pre-order your copy now by following the link pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube or in the description. This book will, if you buy this book, you're going to piss the people in this article off, okay? That's the deal. I'm just trying to provide as much incentive as I can. Okay, moving on. In his 100-day plan, Flanagan included the following premises, among many others. Launch a race and equity workshop series where the central office leaders and principals, the clips we've seen in this article, are a direct result of that series. Develop a plan to implement restorative practices in all district schools. Restorative practices actually do sound like they're tricky, and I didn't talk about them a lot in this article, but there are some positive components, and I will acknowledge that I don't actually think that they're all bad. I think some of them actually make a bunch of sense. But restorative practices also tend to devolve into struggle sessions. So every time you hear the term restorative practices, well, there are good that can come of it, and I don't want to dismiss the good. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I want you to think struggle sessions. Every time you see the term restorative practices, think struggle sessions. And then the last thing that Tom wanted to do, and this is actually really important, the Burlington School District has a budget that is built on equity. Their budget is built on equity. Although the Race and Equity webinar series provides us with an interesting perspective into the grooming of the students attending the school, this last bullet point about the budget tells you the clips in this article are not a fluke, a miscommunication, or a misunderstanding. A budget articulates what your values are, literally. The Burlington School District is building its entire budget on equity. That's the foundation of their entire system of education. It's not about teaching kids to read, write, or do math. It's about creating equal outcomes. That also means they are allocating resources collected from the taxpayers unequally to students as a means of reducing disparity in outcome. They are literally applying the ideology forwarded by Karl Marx when he said, "From each according to his ability, to each according to his need." And we know this because they did an entire webinar about it, and you can watch that webinar right now on YouTube. Now, I have seen questions in the chat. People are asking, did you download all this content? Did you make sure you got all this content? Yes. The Unwoke Army worked tirelessly this weekend. Not only did we research a boat ton of PDFs, not only did we watch a boat ton of videos, we downloaded all of it. So I actually don't think the school district's going to take any of this off the internet. Again, I think they're proud of it. But just in case they do, we have all of it. So it's already too late, and we are already starting to think about FOIA requests that we want to be doing. So this is a slide from that webinar that I told you that they did about their equitable budget. So their budget has 3 models. This first one is a baseline staffing model, which will provide each school with its core staffing. The second one is like non-personnel funds that are on a per student basis. And then we get to the equity allocation. It's called the RISE allocation. The RISE allocation stands for Recognizing Injustice and Seeking Equity, and will provide additional funding using a weighted student formula, meaning more funds in schools with greater needs. This is how they're distributing money in this school district unequally based entirely on equity. The district breaks down its budget into 3 parts, a baseline model. We already talked about this. Here's how the RISE allocation works. Each school in the district gets a base amount per student of $230 for the RISE allocation. That's for all students. For students with disabilities, the base amount is multiplied by 1.6, leading to $368 per student with disabilities. For students that are learning English, the base amount is multiplied by 1.58, leading to $363 per students that are English learners. And the biggest one for the RISE allocation is for students who are deemed to be living in poverty based on receiving free or reduced lunch. That base amount is multiplied by 2.97, leading to $683 per student receiving a free or reduced lunch. Now, what we think is that that means race. And we've also actually seen documents or webinars or documents of them talking about how to integrate LGBTQ into this, and they haven't figured out how to do it. The only reason they haven't integrated are you gay or trans into this allocation is they don't know how to systematize it. They haven't figured out how to do it. But they've talked about it, and we've seen it. Moving on. That leads to large sums of money that each school can invest as it sees fit in equity. And these are huge sums of money for these schools. Burlington High School is getting $421,000 of extra money to invest in equity. Hunt Middle School is getting $170,000. So is Edmonds Middle School, and so on and so forth. And you can see this is from a document they have called Equitable Budgeting, RISE Allocation Overview Report. So you can see all of this money is additional money just based on equity. Now, the Burlington School District has less than 4,000 students. I want us to wrap our heads around what this means. They have less than 4,000 students. That means that every school in the Burlington School District system is getting over $300 per student in extra money to invest in equity. That's a lot. That is a lot. So, what did the schools do with the extra equity money? We're not quite sure yet, to be honest, because we couldn't find their budgets. Except the principals of each school are supposed to meet with the school advisory groups to create plans for that money. Now, for any intrepid journalists out there, or any citizen journalists, or anyone that just wants to write FOIA requests, if someone wanted to FOIA each of these schools and ask them how they are allocating their RISE allocation budget, that would be extraordinarily helpful. That would be great. Someone really should write that FOIA request. I'm just saying. But we know the parents and the community support it. In fact, in the equitable budget meeting, one mother of a kindergartner discussed the benefit of an equitable budget, and I kid you not, resegregating the schools. The parent of a 5-year-old is thrilled that the schools are getting resegregated. Let's listen.
Oh, hi. Okay. So I just wanted to say thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this process. I think it's really exciting. I'm a mom to a kindergartner. So I think just, coming into the school system with this kind of equitable budget process as an intro is awesome. So thank you for that. So my daughter goes to IAA, one of the 2 magnet schools in the district, and I'm sort of coming up to speed and learning all about magnet schools and some of the benefits they offer, as far as particularly with like the resegregation of schools that's happening across the country and creating some of these positive benefits.
Resegregation of the schools are creating positive benefits. All right, I suppose that's one perspective. While we're waiting for our FOIA request to learn more about how the equity dollars are being spent by each school, and remember to always FOIA their emails with strategic keywords. They always forget those are public records. Just a nice public records request pro tip. We can examine some of the investments the district has made in the past few years that will inevitably trickle down. So for the rest of this article, we're going to look at some of the equity investments that the school district at the district level has already made. And I think we can make some conclusions about what that means for the schools within the district. They have an entire district operation dedicated to equity. Burlington School District has an equity office fully staffed with 5 full-time district employees who are working with staff based in each of the schools. They have been building this operation since 2011 with equity annual report data on their website since 2013. I want to show this to you guys. Again, they do this completely in the open. All of this data was here. Look, equity data report archive all the way back to 2013. In fact, we found a PDF from 2011 that's not in this list, but we have it. They've been doing all of this in the public. Justin, thank you for the super chat. Ask for the RISE proposals written by the principals and student advisors. Each school did one to get that money. That is an excellent suggestion for the FOIA request that either we or someone else are going to do. But listen, look, they have all this on their website. Anyone can go and look. I'm just saying, if there are any real journalists out there, remember, guys, this has been going on. One of the things that really burns me about this entire thing is not just that this is crazy and messed up. It took a group of normal people. There were 24 of us working on this all weekend. When this data has been in the public for God knows how long, and no journalist thought to look into it. We stumbled on it as a gag. None of us are journalists. But this has been out there, and no journalists have done journalism. And even in the course of this little operation, I reached out to journalists, and I was like, hey, you want to come do journalism? And they were like, nah. So journalists suck. The profession of journalism is dead. I no longer have any faith in it. This is up to us, guys. This is up to average people. It is just what it is. Let me go back over to the other screen. Okay. They do almost everything transparently, creating a decade of information regarding their operation that doesn't even require a public records request. If there are any real journalists left, dare to dream. It is a dream treasure trove of documents that will keep them busy for months. In October of 2020, the Burlington School District issued a statement on anti-racism that, in part, read the following. We recognize there is much work to be done in our commitment to dismantling the systems of oppression within our practices, policies, and procedures. We at the Burlington School District strongly denounce racism in all its forms. We dedicate ourselves to examining our practices in order to eradicate systemic racism in our school community. We stand in solidarity with Black students, faculty, and staff in condemning racial injustice. We believe Black Lives Matter, all capitalized, meaning the organization, and stand behind local, nonviolent youth activism committed to anti-racism. In November of 2020, the Burlington School District raised the Black Lives Matter flag. I told you guys about this earlier, but they are deeply proud of the fact that they raised the Black Lives Matter flag at the Burlington School District. Look, there's that picture at the top of the article. You can see they had a whole ceremony. There was a press release. There's video of people almost crying. They're very proud of that. Going back over. They've launched restorative practices across all of the schools in the district to promote what basically amounts to a struggle session in the classrooms. They've launched a racial justice academy, and so on and so forth. You can see their accomplishments on their website. We're going to talk about some more of them right now. They're integrating it into the curriculum. At Edmonds Middle School, which you'll remember the assistant trans non-binary principal that we saw at the top, that is the assistant principal of Edmonds Middle School, where some of the students featured earlier in this article attend. They are actively working to make sure the budget priority of equity is integrated into the curriculum. This comes from a newsletter that was sent out to parents on September 18th, 2020. So they've been doing this for a year and a half. And what they said in that newsletter is the following. Our new superintendent, Tom Flanagan, shared the equity plan is framed around, the equity plan is framed around 3 priorities: equity, engagement, and deep learning. Our humanities department, this is in middle school, remember, grades 6, 7, and 8, middle school. Our humanities department has aligned its curriculum with these priorities. As social justice will be a unifying theme throughout the year, 7th and 8th grade students will build on the existing 6th grade humanities social justice curriculum and go in greater depth. Students will explore social justice through the lens of historically marginalized groups. Students will learn about the experiences of these groups, analyze their historical roots of oppressive systems and attitudes, consider their role in shaping a more just society, and take specific action around an issue they feel strongly about. Note the part where they encourage middle school students to take specific action. They are targeting their curriculum around priming their students to feel the injustices all around them. They're being taught that being a good person means becoming an activist. And then I assert that I believe they're trying to weaponize the students. So activist turned congressional candidate Lily Tang Williams, you guys know Lily Tang Williams, she's been on this channel before, is a Chinese immigrant who has spoken extensively about her experience growing up in China during Mao's Cultural Revolution. She describes how children were weaponized to turn against their parents, pitted against each other, and were used against anyone trying to stop the revolution that would lead to today's Chinese Communist Party. The equity team in Burlington High School, in the Burlington School District, perhaps unwittingly, is doing the exact same thing. And I am willing to hold space, to use one of their terms, to hold space for the fact that these could all be useful idiots. They really could. I am not necessarily convinced that any of them truly understand what they are doing is wrong and why it's wrong. I truly believe that most of them are probably useful idiots that were indoctrinated into this system. The difference is that they are pitting the students against the teaching staff. We're going to see how that plays out as a means of rooting out systemic racism, oppression, and white supremacy. It is very similar to what happened at the infamous Evergreen State College uprising, documented by the one and only Benjamin Boyce. They're creating little activists. In collaboration with the University of Vermont, students at Edmonds Middle School participate in YPAR, or Youth Participatory Action Research. You can see from their online meeting notes, and they do have all, look at this. Look at this. This is the online meeting notes. You can see exactly what they're doing. And at all these YPAR meetings, they're talking about gender and race and well-being and ability and LGBTQIA+. Basically, they have all the critical theory groups in among these middle school youth participatory action meetings. So what's going to happen is the teachers are going to be like, they're just collecting data. It's basically like a school project. No, they're not just collecting data. They're learning critical theory. They're learning critical theory. This is, you can even see 8th grade YPAR. This is their Google Doc. They're learning critical theory in 8th grade, inadvertently. Back over to this. YPAR meetings are mostly spent discussing social justice issues across a variety of critical theory: race, gender, ability, LGBTQIA+. They've even won an award for being the best activists in all of youth activists. And you can hear, again, Assistant Principal Nicole Ellis discussing their work here.
And I want to shout out to our middle school YPAR group at EMS. They've been really pushing the district to honor the different genders, which represent our students when they collect data. And so that is a conversation that EMS students have brought to the district level.
So what she said is, I want to shout out our middle school YPAR group. They've really been pushing the district to honor gender differences. The district also launched a summer racial justice summer camp. The district launched a summer racial justice summer camp in 2021, where 51 students spent 5 weeks working to dismantle systems of oppression, explore rage and oppression, and participated in segregated affinity spaces. Anytime you hear the term affinity spaces, think segregation, with students who shared their racial identity. Students also filmed a video for their teachers, imploring them to do better to dismantle oppressive systems with messages like, educate each other, don't kick us out the classroom, respect is not given, it's earned, my skin color does not define me, and establish better communication, and it's your job to care. Now, this video, I'm going to tell you, this video is going to seem innocent. It's going to seem like students just being students and being nice, and they are. Like, listen, the students are the victims in this. So I don't want to put any shade on the students at all. The students are the victims in this. They are the ones being indoctrinated into this ideology. But I want to play this video. It's going to seem like a nice video, and then we're going to talk about why it's a problem. But this is a video that was created by the students in their racial justice summer camp, directed to the teachers. It is called Dear Teachers.
Dear teachers.
Dear teachers.
Dear teachers, one bad day should not ruin the year. Understand culture differences. Educate each other.
Dear teachers. Everyone learns at their own pace.
Be better with discipline. Don't kick us out the classroom.
Dear teachers.
Respect is not given, it's earned. Understand we go through tough times too.
Show us you want to be here and we'll do the same.
Dear teachers, my skin color does not define me.
I'm more than my hijab.
Don't talk behind our back.
Respect goes both ways.
Dear teachers, it doesn't matter how long you work, you can still learn.
Dear teachers, establish better communication.
Dear teachers,
stop suspending students if you want them to learn.
Dear teachers, it is your job to care.
Dear Teachers, from the Summer Racial Justice Academy. So that doesn't seem so bad, right? They're just saying, we just want to be respected as students, and that's all really legit. And I don't want to diminish that, like, I'm sure they probably believe that all this stuff is a problem. But these suggestions may seem innocent until we look at them in context with a series of recommendations they came up with for school administrators. And then they start to look like the beginnings of a struggle session. So I want to show you guys the full document. This is the document that was prepared in the Racial Summer Justice Academy. That is recommendations for the administrators. And we're going to talk about some of them specifically, but I want you to see how many recommendations these students made for their teachers about how they can be more social justice friendly. It's 2 full pages of recommendations. And if you had to guess, well, I guess you don't have to guess. I will even just show you what these recommendations focus on, and I'm sure it's going to be no surprise for those of you who attend regular happy hours what these suggestions focus on. Demands from the Academy attendees to their teachers and school administrators included the following. White people not recognizing their bias has forced many BIPOC students into a position where they are disengaged and stripped of their education. They want their teachers to attend white affinity, segregated, spaces to learn about their privilege and bias. They demand a teacher unpack their bias and practice having conversations about race with each other so they are more competent when they have them with students. They want adults who cause harm to be held accountable. Now, we see this a lot in their documents and in their videos. They never define what harm means. They never define what harm actually means. Harm could literally mean you looked at me the wrong way, you said something that hurt my feelings. Like, they never define what harm means. That's why we always need to nail them down about the definitions. Ensure BIPOC students have BIPOC classmates and have guidance counselors review class lists to ensure BIPOC youth are not alone in their classes, particularly where race is discussed. Create support systems for BIPOC teachers and give students agency over themselves and their education and dismantle the power dynamic between youth and adults. Now, what I start to think when I see list demands like this is, where did the kids learn that all of these things were necessary? This is coming from what the adults are teaching them. This is language that is parroted from what the adults are teaching them. Because I do not know a single 6th, 7th, or 8th grader that just learns this language on their own, that just picks up this language on their own. They are parroting the language that the adults have given them. The district is already planning this year's Summer Racial Justice Academy too. You can apply now if you're a student in Burlington, Vermont. Not making that up. Now, this next video that we're going to watch is probably the most disturbing video for me personally. And I wasn't exactly sure how to present it. I want to be clear. We are going to be watching a video that was edited together of one single student from a larger live stream. That again is on their YouTube channel, so you can go and watch the full context. I edited it for brevity, but what I want you to see is what this school has turned this poor student into. And what has happened here is not the fault of the student at all in any way. The student did nothing wrong. The student is doing what the adults told them to do. What you're going to watch here is a video of a 7th grade student with they, them pronouns. And this student seems to fully embody a social justice warrior. For those of you who have seen the Evergreen State College documentary that Benjamin Boyce put together, and if you have not seen it yet, you absolutely should. It is a wonderful documentary. Compare how you heard students in that documentary speaking with how this 12-year-old is speaking. You're going to hear the same language. You're going to hear the same themes. You can see the indignation with which they assert that students who commit harm are not punished at all, and that Black students and students who speak up against hate speech are almost always punished more severely. And where did they learn all this? In Social Justice Club, of course, because the school has a Social Justice Club, and that's where they learned it. Okay, this is a little bit longer, but we're going to work our way through it.
But if you don't mind unmuting yourself and introducing yourself, your pronouns if you would like, and where you go to school and what brings you here tonight. Maybe can we start with Brett? Are you there, Brett?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Brett. My pronouns are they, them, and I go to Hunt Middle School. The ramifications of harassment and bullying that I think the ramifications that harassment and bullying have on students is truly undeniable at this point, and really nothing seems to ever be done about it. And even if the perpetrators get suspended, which I saw that happen at my elementary school, where people who would bully other students got suspended. When they came back, they would just go straight back to bullying them. And it's just, nothing seems to ever work when discipline does happen, which doesn't seem that often.
What kind of consequences do you think are appropriate? You know, if let's just say we had a report that came in and there was substantiated that behavior occurred, what do you think should be happening to your fellow students?
I don't think I could confidently say what should be happening without taking a look at what is currently happening, which I honestly don't really know much about. The different levels of discipline for different rule breaking. What would you call that? I don't know. But without taking a look at how it is currently being handled, which is not very well, at least in the eyes of students. I don't think I could confidently say what should be happening, but I will say that I think if you go up to any student, at least in my school, and you ask them, do you think that students, like, at least the majority of the time, receive fair punishment for what they have done? I guarantee you that the majority of students will say no, that many students are punished too severely and others are seemingly not punished at all.
So I just want to pause here because we're already starting to see a dichotomy, because we just watched a video from students saying, don't suspend us, don't punish us, but that's not who he's talking about. He's not talking about Black students, which we're going to see in a second. He's talking about, or they, that was an unintentional misgender. They're talking about white students who cause harm to marginalized groups. And this student is under the impression that those students who cause harm to marginalized groups are not being punished with the severity that this student would like. Now, think back to Evergreen, when one of the things we heard consistently in the Evergreen State College documentary is students telling the administrators, you're not punishing people, you're not holding people accountable, you're not punishing people, you're not holding people accountable. But his tune changes when the director of equity talks about, but who do you see being punished, Brett? And again, this is not the fault of the student. The teachers are guiding this student to the answers they want this student to give them. Watch what happens next.
Brett, can I ask another question?
This is the director of equity.
Yes.
Who are the students that you have witnessed being punished differently and more harshly?
Definitely students of the global majority.
Thank you.
Thank you. Almost cries. Looks off into the distance.
Can I get?
We're gonna look. This mom is not buying into this at all, by the way. And I would love to, if anyone knows this mom, I would love to talk to this mom. But what I want to point out, and I'm going to show evidence of this, that director of equity just lied. Because that director of equity allowed a student to say that Black students are suspended more and punished more severely than other, well, they call them students, like people of the global majority. That's the term that they use for that. That director of equity knows that is not true. And he allowed that student to say it anyway. And I'm going to prove that in a second. I have absolute proof that that director of equity knew that that student was not telling the truth. And he let him say it anyway. Let them say it anyway. Sorry. Anyway, let's finish this video first, though.
Clarification of that.
Yes.
Are you saying that? Can you just restate that? Are you saying
the students that I've witnessed that are being punished seemingly too harshly have primarily been Black students and other students of color, but also students that stand up, that I've seen people who stand up against like hate speech get punished more severely than the people who actually said the hate speech and stuff.
So remember at Evergreen when the students were like, why are you punishing the students that protested in the middle of our assembly or protested in the middle of the celebration or stole the cake from the police officer or any of these things? Like, students were acting like crazy people at Evergreen State College, and then they would get punished for it. And the activist students would be like, why are you punishing them? They're just calling out systems of oppression. This 12-year-old just did the same thing. Said that it's Black students of the global majority, Black students, or students who are calling out hate speech are being punished severely. Now, does anyone in the chat believe that this student in this school district has actually seen students who are just calling out hate speech get punished severely? I don't think they've seen that. I think they were fed that line by adults. Emphasize says, if I use pronouns as I'm instructed, they will care about me more. Nah, they only want to use you, not care for you. I mean, I actually legitimately think that these people are mostly useful idiots. I do. But we have the rest of the clip to watch, so we're going to keep going.
So that's a
whole nother side.
Yeah, that's interesting because as a parent, I don't find that to be the case.
Yeah, that mom's
but
not
it
buying
could
it
be
at all.
just that it's my child who's involved in that. So thank you for clarifying, Brett.
And the question to our panelists, do you have one person in the school that you just trust? This is your go-to person, somebody in the building that you have a relationship with, that you can go tell them what's going on and feel safe in doing that?
Does it have to be a teacher?
Nope.
I'd say most of my friend group, since a lot of us are in social justice club together, we tend to talk about that stuff on Thursdays when we meet, sometimes on Tuesdays. I can't speak for students of the global majority, but I tend to trust my queer teachers more. So I think something that would help with being able to go to administration was just more acknowledgement of the fact that these inequities exist within our school, not just like the outside world, and that like that bigotry and that sort of thing it exists within our school as well. It's not exclusive to the outside world. And the only time I've seen my administration acknowledge that is like in the hate speech video we made in Social Justice Club. The faculty and staff did a piece, and I didn't even see like my principal. I'm pretty sure my principal was in that, but I don't remember seeing him. Wait, no, he wasn't in that. I don't know. I just haven't seen them. I haven't seen them acknowledge that very often.
This child is parroting the talking points that the adults have given them. This occurred during a webinar about student and family rights. You can find the link in the article if you want to watch the full webinar. That occurred on July 19th, 2022. I want you to keep that date in mind. July 19th, 2022. Children do not learn these things unless adults teach them. This is a 7th grader. They're 12 years old. And for what it's worth, remember how I told you the director of equity was lying? Now I'm going to give you evidence that the director of equity was lying. For what it's worth, it is not true what the students said about Black students getting suspended more frequently, and the director of equity, Henry Sparks, he just generally goes by Sparks, who asked him which populations are effective, knew that when he asked the question. I want you to think about how insidious this is. That director of equity knew that he was asking a leading question that would give the student a chance to give the wrong answer, so that he could have a moment where he looks off longingly in the distance about how victimized Black students are in this school, when he knows that's not true. And we know that because this is a school board snapshot from the goals report for the 20 to 21 school year that says flat out, students who identify as Black or African American were not suspended disproportionately in 20 to 21. The director of equity knew emphatically, based on his own data, that it was untrue that Black students are severely punished more often. They had the data to show this. And he asked the leading question of the child anyway, so they could put on a good show in the community. I just want everyone to wrap their head for a second around how insidious that is. Moving on, we're almost done. This is the last little bit, and then we'll wrap it up. A prediction. Burlington, Vermont will become the first American city run on equity. Generally speaking, there's no reason to believe that the majority of the citizens of Burlington have a problem with the way things are going. Vermont is an extremely blue state with a Democratic supermajority in its state house. And of course, Burlington is its most woke city. The people of Burlington want their children to be educated into a far-left progressive ideology, and they should absolutely have the freedom to do so. I want to really emphasize this. Guys, communities can dictate their own standards. If people want to live by a crazy leftist ideology, That's their choice. I don't want it forced on me. I'm not moving to Burlington anytime soon, but they should absolutely have the freedom to live like they want to live. Freedom means the freedom to screw up your kids and your community, and the final outcome is yet to be determined. But there's no sign of this slowing down. According to the school district, 79% of staff and 72% of community members support the equitable budget strategy and agree that resources should be allocated just as Karl Marx would do it, to each according to their need. And just last month, 3 21-year-olds who are all recent Burlington High School graduates won election to their school board. Those who were educated in a school built on equity will now be in charge of running the school based on equity. Our interest is in the impact of all of this. What will Burlington achieve by building its entire educational system on equity? Will grades improve? Increase acceptances to the most elite colleges? Will they rank the highest in reading, writing, and math scores? And what if the outcomes don't move? What if they get worse? Will their white superintendent be fired for not doing his job of dismantling systemic racism? We may be watching the first American city built entirely on equity develop before our very eyes. What will the outcome be? Will the city turn into a modern-day utopia or an American version of communist China? This article scratches the surface of the information we're uncovering in Burlington, Vermont, and it goes far beyond the school district. In the next article, we'll walk you through the city's racial equity strategic roadmap. Subscribe to follow along and support this work. And of course, if you're inclined, pre-order my book, endorsed by Chris Rufo himself. But guys, that is what we uncovered going on in Burlington, Vermont. So I just want to ask the chat. I'm going to give you guys an answer. How's everyone feeling? How do you feel about what we've just watched? If you appreciate the work that went into this, I hope you'll mount that like button for me. Not because you agree with the content. I don't agree with this content either. But because you appreciate the amount of work by 24 individuals who worked all weekend to bring you this information and to expose what's going on in this school district. Tom J said, I was the only black kid in a 6th grade class of over 100. Race never came up the entire year, and nobody cared or treated me differently. Yep, that tends to be the case. Yep, Hallie is nauseated. Sin is sick. Nat D says a nightmare. Jennifer is horrified. It's really bad. I'm going to be honest. I felt like I was watching. It's not an exaggeration to say that I was starting to get so, I was watching this stuff all weekend and I was starting to get so desensitized to it that I felt like I was watching a movie. And then when I finally finished this article at around 2 a.m. last night and I just went to bed and I just laid there and I think it hit me that these were actually real kids and it wasn't a movie, it wasn't a TV show, it wasn't a script. It hit me that these were all real kids in the real world that are really being indoctrinated into this ideology, and I just started crying. Maybe it's because I was exhausted. I don't know. But I just started crying at this reality. So what is going to happen next is we thank you V Parker. I appreciate that. What is going to happen next is this is something that we're going to keep an eye on. We are going to be doing follow-up pieces. There are so many things to look into, and there's so many things to investigate. And I have ideas about how to present it. And I love when we have people complaining in the chat about being banned when we're talking about children being indoctrinated into a woke ideology. Can we focus for like 30 seconds, please? So we are going to be doing more on this. The Unwoke Army is going to be doing more. Now, if you would like to join the Unwoke Army and to start working on this sort of thing, the very best thing you can do is join my locals. You can join my locals for free at kb.locals.com. It's not like a pay-to-play thing. The only reason that that you might want to join my locals as a supporter in regards to the Unwoke Army is it's going to give me an opportunity to get you to know you faster. And I am deadly serious when I say that I want the people involved in investigating this stuff with me. Listen, I will work with as many people who legitimately want to fight back against this. I will not include people who are just doing this to get famous. I will not include people who are just going to create drama and bullshit and infighting, because there is way too much drama and bullshit and infighting in the anti-woke community, and it's really driving me insane. So if you would like to be involved in investigating this, the best thing for you to do is to join my locals community, give me a chance to get to know you. And of course, listen, you can do this on your own too. You don't need to work with us. And I want to really emphasize that this is all available in the public. If you just want to go off on your own and watch videos and investigate PDFs, go to town, man. Write those FOIA requests. I want to come out with a whole list of things that we FOIA from this school district. We've already got a list started. I want to send those in. I want to crowdfund those FOIA requests. I want to find out what is going on. And I think there's a lot more that we're not seeing. And if anyone knows anyone in Burlington, Vermont, that would like to share information about what is going on in the school district, please reach out to me. You can find me at activelyounwoke.com. You can send me an email, activelyounwoke@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter. My DMs are open. I will protect your identity. I have a feeling there's a lot going on that they're not putting on the internet, and I would like to know what that is. So if there are any brave whistleblowers in the Burlington area that have access to what's going on in the schools, get in touch. I will protect your identity. I have never once revealed the identity of a whistleblower, and I'm not about to start now. So please share this out. How every single person can help, share this out. Share this article out. The other thing you can do is go to my Twitter. I will show you exactly where to share it. Bing! So I right now have this pinned to the top of my Twitter. I am Dr. Carlin B on Twitter. I have it pinned right at the top. Share this tweet. Share it out. Share the article. Put it all over the place. The more eyes we get on this, the better it is, and the more this gets exposed. And again, I have no problem with people living their life however they want to live it. If they want to create a little communist utopia in Burlington, Vermont, as it seems that that's what they want to do, they should have the freedom to do that. But we should also be paying attention to watch what happens to the first American city that will be built on equity. And I'm going to prove that when the next follow-up article is about the Burlington, Vermont city racial justice roadmap, because it's crazy. One of the members of the Unwoke Army started reading me this thing, and I literally thought that they were telling me a joke. I literally thought that they were just saying the most woke things they could possibly say. No, they were reading out of the racial justice plan for the city of Burlington. So all of this is linked. All of this is together, and we're just scratching the surface of it. So help us out by sharing the content, getting as many eyes on it as possible. Share out this article, get as many eyes on it as possible. And I appreciate everyone that contributed. I appreciate everyone who's been sharing. M169 says, I've been sharing all day. It pops up in my feed. Just retweet it. Keep on doing that, guys. Retweet, retweet, retweet. Go into those quote tweets. Go into the quote tweets and retweet the ones that you like the best. Some of the quote tweets are good. Some of the quote tweets are not so good. But there's like a whole bunch of people that you can quote tweet. Go share, 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 share. The more eyes we get on it, the better. All right, guys, that is all I have for this live stream. I am getting ready to do a community Zoom in my locals community. This is for all supporters. We are going to be getting together in about 25 minutes, so plenty of time to sign up. And guys, I think that this community Zoom is going to be probably one of the biggest celebrations we've ever had, because we worked so hard this weekend. Not everyone, but like so many people who come to the community Zooms are involved in the Unwoke Army. And you can come and join us as well. At 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be on a private Zoom call. It will not be recorded. You can say whatever you want to say. You can have whatever reaction you want to have. We can celebrate the work that we did together. We can commiserate over how awful all of that was. You can get access to that and much more by heading over to kb.locals.com/support and signing up as a supporter for $5 a month. You can do it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. This support helps me do this work. It helps me guide the Unwoke Army. It helps me put the systems in place that make all this possible. It helps me do the happy hour on Friday. Guys, without Friday happy hour, we wouldn't have uncovered this. And as an extra special birthday present to me, my birthday is in 8 days. I'm having my 13th, 29th birthday or something like that. Not 30. Oh God, that's not right. No. I just aged myself. I'm having like my 11th, 29th birthday. If you guys want to give me the best birthday present you possibly can, become a member of my locals community. I would love to get 100 new supporters before my birthday next week, a week from tomorrow. You know, yay. But the other thing you can do is make sure you pre-order my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. I am trying to live and breathe the concepts that I wrote about in Actively Unwoke. And it is the ultimate guide. I break down the woke ideology in plain English so everyone can understand it. I give you case studies and actionable strategies that you can use. I tell you what to do if you get canceled. I tell you what to do to manage your stress. These are strategies that we are really putting into practice in my locals, in my unwoke army. We are fighting back. We're being the change we want to see in the world. You can pre-order the book right now. It comes out on May 10th, the hardcover, the audiobook, and the Kindle version on Amazon. There are other non-Amazon options too. I know some of you have an aversion to Amazon. So if you want to go to activelyunwoke.com, you can find some non-Amazon places to order the book from. All right. I will be seeing my locals members in about 20 minutes. I'm going to go take a little break. I wish I had enough time for a nap, but I don't think that I do, so I'll have to sleep later. But I will see you guys in about 20 minutes. And of course, I will be back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. because I'm live at 5 on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on my main channel. You're never going to want to miss another happy hour again after this week because happy hour is on my second channel, Actively Unwoke. And that is what inspired this entire article that we went through today. All right, guys, that's all I've got. We'll see you soon.